In the vast tapestry of the Elder Scrolls lore, there exists a time shrouded in mystery and myth. A time before the rise of empires, before the clash of gods and mortals. Welcome to the Elder Scrolls lore, the Dawn Era, a journey into the primordial beginnings of Tamriel's history, where the foundations of the universe were laid and the seeds of creation took root. The Elder Scrolls series has a vast amount of lore information and details. This video is only a summary of the Dawn Era. If you would like to delve into more details, you can visit either the unofficial Elder Scrolls pages or the Imperial Library. Both sites' links can be found in the description. This video is part of our lore series for the franchise The Elder Scrolls. The video is divided into 7 parts, and the timeline for each part will be given in the description or can also be found in the video. Please subscribe for future lore content and stay tuned. Now then, let's start the video with the beginning of the Dawn Era. In the unparalleled era known as the Dawn Era, the forces of divinity and chaos intermingled, birthing worlds and shaping realities. At the beginning, there were only Anu and Padme, the two brothers who appeared in the void. Some sources suggest that time began at this point. The duo of Anu and Padme is also referred to as Anuil Sithis, AKL, Satakakel, Isis not. Anuil represents the everlasting ineffable light, while Sithis embodies the corrupting inexpressible action. Orbis, often called the imperceptible penumbra, the gray center, or the unnatural realm, emerged from their mutual influence and permeation. It existed as a formless chaos, giving rise to countless realms within Aetherius and Oblivion, as well as other less structured forms. Nirn also took shape during this time. It is known as the Grey Maybe, in Ehlnofey, an ancient language of Nirn used by the Ehlnofey during the Dawn Era. Nirn literally means that. It too lies between Anu and Padme, formed from the interplay of light and darkness, similar to Orbis. According to some sources, Orbis was simply created at the beginning as described above. However, other sources suggest that Nir, or also pronounced Nirn, once formed, became a point of contention between the two original divine beings. Nir gave birth to the creation, a child of herself and Anu, comprising 12 worlds. These worlds were destroyed by Padme and later reconstructed by Anu as a new world. The Khajiit beliefs depict Anu and Padme, also called Honor and Fatima in Khajiit legends, as a couple who marry and bear offspring to share their happiness, with Padme being the divine who gives birth to other divines. Redguard myths describe Satak as the first being, a colossal serpent, with the initial worlds gliding between its scales, barely existing in proper form. The Altmer, on the other hand, believe that Orbis owes its existence to Anuil's contemplations, as well as the creation of Sithis, who represents the limitation of Anuil's ponderings. While Anuil is venerated as the creator in most cultures, Sithis is often held in high esteem because he is seen as the catalyst, the one who causes the reaction and is considered the creator of the world. Sithis sundered the nothingness and transformed its parts, fashioning a myriad of possibilities and ideas. Some sources even suggest that nothing existed before Sithis, and it is Anuil who complicates the world once created. The Hist, for instance, believe in the existence of Sithis. With that, the beginning of the Dawn Era ended with the creation of Anu and Padme, also called as Sithis in many legends. With the birth of these divine beings also started the Wheel of Creation, and the creation, the Etiata, also called the original spirits, are the forces perceived and revered by the mortals as gods or spirits. The humans, also called men, important lore information, men, is a collective racial term used to refer to the beings of the human races in Tamriel, so it means that races like Nords, Redguards, Imperials, and Bretons all are called the descendant of men, believe that these Ehlnofey are the gods and demons. To Aldmer, meaning first folk or elder folk, were the original race of Meron Nern, who claimed to be direct descendants of the Edra. The modern races of elves all came from the Aldmer as they spread from Somerset Isles throughout Tamriel. In their language Almeris, the word Edra translates to our ancestors, and Daedra translates to not our ancestors. The Ehlnofey, also known as the original spirits, trace their origin back to Anu and Padme. Mortals classified them into Edra and Daedra, with differing perceptions among humans and elves. Humans believe the gods to be their creators, while the elves consider them to be their ancestors. The Ehlnofey exerted their influence over the young Nern. Their numbers increased. They changed forms and personalities, and some even ceased to exist during that time. According to certain sources, these spirits were formed from fragments of immortal polarity. Other accounts describe Anu and Padme engaged in a conflict for Nir. The spilled blood of Padme became the Daedra, the spilled blood of Anu became the stars, and the mixed blood of both became the Edra. The Khajiit believe that the first litter of Anu and Fatimite consisted of the Edra, while the second litter comprised the Daedra. Although Anu and Fatimite were content with their children, their daughter Ehlnofey, who was gifted the sky by her parents, felt lonely in the vast expanse above. Fatimite took pity on her and tricked Anu into impregnating her once again. As a result, she gave birth to Jaukaje, Nerni, and Lorkaj. One of the most significant events was the emergence of Akatosh, the first to take form, marking the beginning of time. This enabled the original spirits to perceive themselves as beings spanning past and future. As a result, the Ehlnofey crystallized, and their process of formation came to an end. The gods, known to us as the Eight Divines, came into existence. Other realms were also established, such as the Far Shores, where several divines sought temporary refuge at certain times. Another prominent original spirit is Lorkhan, known as the Doomed Drum, creator, trickster, tester, and Shazar. He devised a plan to create Mundus, the mortal realm. Often described as a deceiver, schemer, and trickster, Lorkhan persuaded or deceived the other Ehlnofey into participating in the creation of Mundus. In doing so, he disrupted the world, destabilizing the status quo and embodying change, much like Padme. Hence, the original spirits came into existence, with the scheme of Lorkhan, and the foolishness of original spirits. The birth of Mundus and the Daedric plains happened. So let us go into the next phase of the Dawn Era, the birth of Mundus and the Daedric plains. According to the Altair, Magnus was the architect of the world, while Lorkhan was the mastermind behind the endeavor. However, Magnus withdrew from the creation at the last moment, tearing a hole in oblivion and fleeing. The Magna Gu, accompanying Magnus, also fled and tore smaller holes, resulting in the sun and stars. Some sources suggest that the Magna Gu were fragments of Magnus himself that separated from him during the escape. Their departure allowed magic to permeate Nirn without limitations and represents what remains of Magnus in Mundus. On the other hand, the Redguards believe that Rupka placed the stars in the sky to guide the other gods and, after the creation of the mortal realm, to guide the souls of mortals to the afterworld. The Ehlnofey participated in the creation of Mundus in various ways. Some sacrificed themselves to form physical matter, others engaged in wars and perished to create the substance of the world. Some even transformed into Ehlnofey to prevent the world from falling into chaos or disappearing once the gods departed. The creation processes varied, including the formation of mortals in the likeness of the gods, the death of gods leading to the emergence of decaying mass from which mortals arose, and numerous other analogous methods. In Cyrodiil, it is believed that the Edra lost a portion of their power during the world's creation, giving fragments of themselves to form the world. The Bosmer believe that Ifer, or Jeffra or Ifer, transformed into the first earth bone, Ehlnofey, bringing forth the laws of nature and providing mortals with a model of stable existence. Ifer or Jeffra or Ifer, known as a storyteller, imparted knowledge and teachings to the wood elves that endure to this day. The Nords, on the other hand, speak of Kine, who breathed life into them at the throat of the world. According to the Khajiit, Nerni, a descendant of Anur and Fatimai, gave birth to multiple mortal races, much like her mother birthed the Etiada. Azura and Ifer further shaped and formed the world and its races. The mortals inhabit Nerni herself. The Sijic order, in line with Altmarai beliefs, asserts that the divine beings became the original spirits revered by mortals after their death, rather than before. Their deaths allowed them to differentiate themselves from other magical beings in the unnatural realms. Redguard legends speak of Akel, the hungry stomach of Satak, the serpent that ceaselessly devoured. With its insatiable appetite, there was more space for the worlds to exist, and new things began to take form. However, these newly formed things often made mistakes as they had little time to practice being before they emerged. This concept bears similarity to the formation of the Etiada. Satak consumed his own heart, signifying his end, and shed his skin to become Sadakal. Thus, a cycle of the great serpent's death and rebirth commenced. Some divine beings learned to navigate this cycle, and Rupka created a helper named Sep from the old skins. However, Sep persuaded the other original spirits to create a mortal realm using the remaining old skins. After the creation of Mundus, the Edra, in fact, departed from the realm they had created. They became more distant and absent from Tamriel. The Daedra, feeling jealous because mortals had inherited the capacity for creation, while they could only bring about change, found reasons to tempt mortals with boundless power and gain followers. Daedra, unlike the Edra, chose not to participate in the creation of the mortal realm. They wanted to retain their entirety, and thus created their own realms within themselves, granting them complete control and authority. Not all of the gods chose to leave, however. Some, the 8 divines, bound themselves to the new plane, but returned to their own planes in the end. These became the gods of many of the new inhabitants of the world, and were seen from Nirn as planets in the night sky. One group of these beings fully surrendered their divinity, and formed the Ehlnofey. This now mortal race began to procreate in the physical sense, and eventually diverged into the mortal races of the mythic era. The remaining divines, before leaving Nirn to the mortals, created the Adamantine Tower, and convened there to decide Lorkhan's fate. After Magnus departed from Mundus, the gods convened at the Adamantine Tower, the oldest known structure on Tamriel created by the Edra as a place for discussing the creation of Mundus. They reached different decisions. Some chose to become the Ehlnofey, staying behind to safeguard the newly created world, while others departed alongside Magnus. During this gathering, Lorkhan was either sentenced to death or banishment, with accounts varying across different sources. While the punishment of Lorkhan was being decided, the Ehlnofey came to inhabit the world. The Ehlnofey are the Etiada who sacrificed themselves so that the world could survive. For example, some became the laws of nature, like Ifer did, and some gave rise to the mortal races. The Ehlnofey divided into the Old Ehlnofey, who fortified the borders of their territory and lived in the splendor they once lived in, safe from the chaos outside, and the wandering Ehlnofey, who were scattered across the world and searched their kin, to find the land of the Old Ehlnofey at last. They were delighted with it. They expected to be welcomed nicely, but for some reason the old Ehlnofey looked on them as degenerates, fallen from their former glory. For whatever reason, war broke out, and raged across the whole of Nirn, destroying a large number of continents. The ones that remained are Tamriel, the land of old Ehlnofey, Akavir, Admira and Yakuta. The Hiss did not take part in the war, but a big number of them was destroyed during the battles. A small number survived as the Black Marsh. Elves are the descendants of the old Ehlnofey. Men are the descendants of the wandering Ehlnofey. In Redguard myths, the original spirits were punished for listening to Sep. He deceived them, being a counterpart of Lorkhan, instead of Ruptka, and they had to stay in the new world created by them from the old skins of the giant serpent. They had to search for the way to the far shores all by themselves, without a guidance other than the stars in the sky. They had to live on as generations of mortal races, which go to the afterworld after death. Sources that mention the creation, that is the 12 worlds, provide us with information that the only things from those 12 worlds that survived are the Ehlnofey and the history. They differ from the myths that show the Ehlnofey as descendants of the Etiada. While the Ehlnofey had settled on the new world, the gods had also decided the punishment of Lorkhan. Humans perceive the creation of Mundus as a good event. The elves think it was a separation from godhood. The aspects of Edra, human and elven, thought in a similar way. The gods of men were happy that a beautiful world was born out of their suffering. The elven gods were embittered, felt cheated on, thought that everything was ruined. What's interesting, the human and elven gods are in fact various aspects, versions, of the same divines. After the creation of the mortal realm, Lorkhan was punished for his deceiving. According to some legends, the punishment was death. According to other legends, it was wandering the world. The Khajiits say that the reason of punishing him was telling everyone one of the secrets that dying Fatimite told Azura, her favorite daughter. In the stories about killing Lorkhan, at the end of a great war of human and elven gods, Trinimac tore Lorkhan's heart out, and when he and Auriel tried to destroy it, they failed. Auriel tied it to an arrow and shot it into the sea. In the spot where it fell, the Red Mountain formed. Some sources suggest that two halves of Lorkhan's torn body are the two moons, Master and Secunda. After winning the war against Lorkhan, Auriel ascended to heaven in full observance of his followers so that they might learn the steps needed to escape the mortal plane. With that came the end of the Dawn Era. There are two events that mark the end of the Dawn Era, given by different sources. One of them is building the Adamantine Tower, Magnus leaving, and the fate of the other gods, their departure, changing into mortals, Lorkhan's punishment. The second event is the creation of Daedric realms. With that, today's lore video has come to an end. Please note that this video is only a summary of the Dawn Era. If you would like to delve into more details, I recommend visiting either the unofficial Elder Scrolls pages or the Imperial Library. Both sites' links can be found in the video description. Additionally, if you're interested in accessing the script of the video, it can be found on my Patreon. Till then, thank you for watching, and please subscribe and comment for new lore contents.